right, hey, I'm the guy that changes shirts every layer, except from now on, you guys made me wet, so I'm not doing it anymore. Layer 4, Yuko is Kinji's ex. I kind of hinted at this earlier. Many times throughout the course of the game, Yuko talks about how she was once in a relationship with someone who is a bit younger than herself. Conversations regarding this topic have led her to mention that her boyfriend was a fan of cryptology, and he caused her to become interested in it. Another revealed tidbit about her past relationship is that after they broke up, this mysterious unnamed boyfriend seemed to vanish off the face of the earth. Given the similarities between their stories, many fans speculate this past boyfriend was Kinji, as after his experiences with his own ex, he became sheltered. Kinji also once stole a book on cryptology, among other topics, from the school library, causing Yuko to begin an investigation into the missing texts. In the leaked Katawa Shoujo beta, this was proven to be true. Obviously, this is not true, like verified, for the final project, because she would be having sex with a child. She's an adult. I don't know that her age is ever given. You know, maybe she's like 19, 20-ish, so it's like not really... I'm not going too much into this. It's like, if it's a 1 year difference, I guess it's not so bad, but we don't know what the real age gap is here. Shizune forced Hisao. I mentioned this one in another layer, but this was during Shizune's route. The first sex scene involved Shizune tying up Hisao's hands and banging in a chair. Basically, there really isn't evidence that Hisao was against it, since he never said anything during, nor suggested he was against it with his body language. He is not remorseful about it, and ultimately it comes down to two teens having awkward sex for the first time. Katawa Shoujo Grid 1. This is a very, very, very early version of KS. It was a prototype, came kind of before the pre-alpha, or you can even call this the pre-alpha if you really wanted to. Also, this game is just half of Act 1 and really, really short, so don't get around with it. Amy was tall. She used to have a larger chest too. Witnessing Rin actually makes sense was kind of a shock. Hanako seemed less jumpy and quicker to warm up to Hisao, but she got some weird fixation. She seemed to enjoy climbing and had an in-depth knowledge of the history of the school. Of course, neither of those things were as jarring as the fact that she actually seemed talkative. She also struck me as a bit more openly bitter and possibly self-destructive. The biggest thing I noticed was Lilly. I'm not sure why, but for some reason her presence seemed boring. All in all, Act 1 was a massive improvement. Of course, Grid 1 was never meant to go public. This is that leaked build that I mentioned before. Mobile version. There is an unofficial Android port of this game, so it can be played on mobile, though it seems to break during the credits scene. Misha's route mod. There's a few mods out there that add a Misha route to the game. At least one of them isn't translated in English, though. But there is at least one English one, it seems. Translation into Portuguese. The game doesn't seem to have an official Portuguese translation, so the fans decided to make one. The person who originally worked on it, apparently his computer was stolen and all progress on the translation was lost. And then some more things happened in his life and he just never had the time to work on it again. So some other fans got together and made it themselves after this. You can find them talking about it on the Katawa Shoujo forums, but all their discussions are obviously in Portuguese. I can't read that, so I'm no help. Conceptual designs. I believe this is talking about the different designs the girls went through during development. I found this image of them. Unofficial HD port. There's a couple of ports/mods that make the game HD, so you can play it in 1080p. Unofficial products. You can find these all over online, mostly on Etsy. People selling stickers, pins, badges, etc. with Katawa Shoujo designs on them. Katawa Shoujo manga. There is a Reddit user by the name of NonsenseKS who is working on a Katawa Shoujo manga in their spare time, it seems. It's only at chapter 1 so far, though apparently it's pretty good, at least from what I saw people saying. I only really skimmed through it, I didn't read it. Physical copy, French version. When the French translation came out for the game, it was actually sold in a limited edition physical copy. Full Hearts. I mentioned this one earlier with the Katawa Shoujo 2. This is a visual novel that might still be being worked on. I'm not 100% certain. It was originally called Katawa Shoujo 2. Their subreddit has no new posts in the last 9 months, and nothing from the devs confirming it is still being worked on in over a year, though they apparently mostly work on Discord, so that could be why. But it may help to have a dev blog like the Katawa Shoujo people did to at least tell people, hey, we're still alive, we're still working on this. The game seemed largely like a copycat of Katawa Shoujo. The game uses a heart logo very similar to KS's, with some name changes. Some characters look very similar to the KS characters or hybrids of them. The story is very similar to KS's with some name changes, and the protagonist has hemophilia. They also allegedly call themselves a spiritual successor to KS, though the KS devs heavily disavow this and have even told them to not call themselves this. Corporal Crud even commented this in a Reddit comment, saying, quote, "Guys, not sure if any of the fake heart devs are here, but if you are, I thought we spoke about this." Fair enough, you're putting in a lot of effort to create something original, and it seems like people are excited to read it. That's great. But please remove the reference to Katawa Shoujo from your YouTube link. Now, calling yourself a spiritual successor to a work when the creators of said work have expressly told you not to do so is madness. It's like if you started a science podcast and said, "This is the spiritual successor to Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk," and he told you to totally not do that after you paid for his autograph. End quote. Ultimately, though, this does seem like a dead project, which is probably for the best. Even the people on the Katawa Shoujo forum do not like this because it seems like such a rip of Katawa Shoujo. Art books. There are some official Katawa Shoujo art books you can find online on the KS website. Some of them are called the Katawa Shoujo art book. The second one is Fragments of Summer, and a third one is called Tomorrow Today. The art in them is really good. Daki Makuras, I believe that's how that's said. This is your standard anime waifu body pillow. The devs never made any officially and are against people selling them commercially, but you seem to be able to make one personally, so I suppose that you could make one yourself. I saw a few of them online. Kinji is trying to warn you. Kinji does warn Hisao that the girls are trying to kill him. Then during the Lilly route, he almost dies from having sex too good. The man was a modern day Nostradamus. I'm not really certain if this is about something Kinji said specifically or about his character being the visual for how you don't want to wind up. His character could be seen as a negative example in any route of how Hisao should not be doing things, how Hisao should not be living his life, because if he continues down that path, or the path that he is on, he will turn into Kinji, which is represented by the bad ending of Act 1. There are two examples in the game of this. Kinji's ending is foreshadowed on multiple routes. In Amy's route, he mentions pushing someone off a roof as the best way to murder someone, foreshadowing Hisao accidentally falling to his death after Kinji moves closer to him. In Shizune's route, Misha tells Hisao not to spend all day being a paranoid person who stays in their room all day, foreshadowing Hisao throwing his lot in with Kinji if he doesn't try to spend time with anyone. Cory at the White House. I believe this is supposed to be the show Cory in the House. I have no idea how this relates to Katawa Shoujo. I couldn't find anything about this relating to the game. Sorry, it may be something that's Portuguese specific again, but I couldn't find anything. Rusty Takumi. This is a YouTuber who apparently did an extensive analysis of Katawa Shoujo. The video is not in English, so I didn't understand any of it, but apparently it's good. Yuko's route. Many people seem to really want a Yuko's route, and there's allegedly once upon a time there may have been something similar to it in the early builds. There is at least one person who's made a bit of a flowchart for it, and there's some fanfics for her as well. Same melody. Some of the songs in the game have the same melody but are played in a different key. Painful History and Raindrops and Puddles, and Stride and Wiozona. I don't know. Just to name a couple. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Old Katawa Shoujo art. This is just about the old artwork that was made for the game before it was all changed into the final product. Hisao dies in every route but Emi's. Emi's route is the only one where it seems he gets vigorous levels of exercise by running regularly. He also seems to be regularly taking his meds, unlike in Lilly's route. Hisao is also on a special diet that is healthier for him. Given all this, his odds of survival are most likely at their highest during Emi's route, and given his infrequency of heartaches during this route, it seems to hold true. Cursed Shizune wish. Misha claims that Shizune never makes wishes. The reason for this is unknown, but Shizune appears to be embarrassed about it. I couldn't find any mentions to like some kind of wish she may have made, and Shizune can talk. I feel like this one should be higher up in the iceberg because it just feels like common knowledge. Deaf people can talk, they just have difficult time with words because they don't know the proper pronunciation for them. In the game, Shizune has functioning vocal cords, being able to make slightly audible laughs and other noises, but is mute and isn't known to make vocalizations while signing. Akira underage drinking. Aside from the obvious of giving kids alcohol during the game, in the beta, Akira's age wasn't finalized. And at one point in development, Akira was actually going to be the younger sister. At one point in the beta, during Hanako's true route, she stated as being the younger sibling. In spite of this, she's seen drinking in her only appearance in this route. Seems the alcoholism runs in the family. Rin's family is dead. I think this is just someone's nutty theory about where are Rin's parents. I could be wrong, but I believe it was the Hive Mind who mentioned his Matty D interview something about Rin's family being involved in the Yakuza/Mafia, but that idea never once made it in. It never got put into like any writing and was scrapped immediately, so it's most likely just an internal joke, but not much in the game is ever stated about Rin's parents. However, her art teacher mentions how supportive they are, which is like the only line they ever get, and providing opportunities for their daughter. As for why they're never brought up in Rin's relationship to her parents, it isn't a priority. It could be a good relationship with an excellent family life. It could be a harrowing gauntlet of inhuman monsters who have no right to be parents constantly abusing her. It wasn't relevant to the story being told or to the characters involved, so it was never addressed. How much does Hisao even tell the girls about his parents throughout their routes as well? Just something to think about. The nurse's name is Nurse. I kind of mentioned this earlier. The original name for the nurse was Nurse-kun, confirmed on the dev blog. The school nurse was originally referred to as Nurse-kun, a reference to a series of threads on 4chan. They're about the experiences of a real nameless nurse who was in charge of a then 7-year-old multi-amputee car crash victim. The story that those threads wove was considered very human and touching, apart from that special 4chan flavor any thread has. The initial post starting the story ponders whether he should R-word his patient or not. To this day, Nurse's and Emi's relationship still reflects the relationship of the Channer nurse and his patient in some ways. Some ways, not always. Painful history is not Hanako's theme. Hanako is the only main character whose theme, Painful History, does not play when Hisao first meets her. Instead, the song Everyday Fantasy plays. Oi and Keiko. Oi and Keiko are a pair of students at Yamaku, the successors to the school's student council after Shizune and Misha graduate. Full voice acting. There has been a few projects that have attempted to fully voice act Katawa Shoujo. They all seem to end before finishing the game, since it takes so long to do it. You need good and consistent voice actors for the job. Plus, people may not gravitate towards it, since when you read a book, you have a certain idea of how a character sounds in your head. Putting real voice on that character could ruin your preconceived ideas of the character. The devs also considered adding voice acting into the game, but given the size of the project, amount of voices needed, and time zone/timing conflicts, it would have been a lot of extra work and extended the development time for the game. Layer 5, likes and dislikes. I guess these are just things that people liked and disliked about the game. Some people didn't like Kenji, which I kind of agree, he comes off as one-dimensional, and after a couple of routes, he's really annoying. Some people didn't like the writing in general and the choices you get to make, parts of the stories that felt like it dragged on and weren't needed, etc. But there are a lot of people who had nice things to say about how great the game was. There's just too many to add here, and I'm sure you could think of some for yourself. For Want of a Nail, this is a fairly popular fanfic for KS that explores the idea of having a Misha route. Katawa Crash. Katawa Crash is a fan-made collision game that features characters from the visual novel Katawa Shoujo, and various characters from other games and series. The game's concept was based on Nanaka Crash, a fan-made game with characters from the visual novel Cross Channel. The original game is made using Flash and runs on PC browsers, or as a standalone EXE. Unofficial Android port exists on Google Play. It seems the game was never finished by the creator. Allegedly, a Flash update broke some stuff in the game and they stopped working on it. Katawa Shonen. This is based on some artwork that was posted to the dev blog. Some people have also made their own versions of it and posted it to various websites. The idea is, what if all the genders were flipped? All the girls become guys and all the guys become girls. It's mostly a joke and nothing even fan-made has come from it outside the artwork. PSP port. This one's pretty straightforward. There is a fan-made port of the game for PSP. You can also use this to play it on the PS Vita as well. In both cases, you have to crack your system. There should be guides online you can follow that. Tell you how to do it if you're interested. April Fool's Expansion. This is a joke made by the dev team on their blog. They were going to add 2 new character routes, one for Rika Katayama, a second-year student at Yamaku. Rika has a heart condition not completely unlike Hisao's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome. The condition is fatal if untreated, but Rika has gone through reconstructive heart surgery as a toddler. She's going to be an introverted person, which people judge as her shyness, but was willing to talk when people approached her. The second was Saki Inomoto. Saki suffers from spinocerebellar ataxia, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, a degenerative disease that makes her gradually lose muscle control amongst other issues. She uses a crutch to help her balance, but is going to lose the ability to walk and eventually die. All daily tasks and even eating and breathing. Fated to die with no hope of a cure. Saki is a conflicting figure. She has to live with a horrific degenerative condition every day, yet she is outgoing and fashionable. Just like any high school girl, Saki was going to be a complex character trying to keep a smile on her face, but would turn bitter quickly and reminisce on the pointlessness of it all given her terminal illness. They also joked about how they would start paywalling choices and make people buy some kind of subscription to access content. They were going to start an official store where they would sell shirts, hug pillows, and more. Saving and loading, as well as rolling back a line, would all be microtransactions. It's not too far from what Unity and EA are doing. They were going to add in ads to the game as well, unless you were a paid subscriber. Then you would be able to skip the ads. They were also going to buy a real studio in Denmark and make more games be a real studio. Obviously, again, this is all a joke for April Fools, and none of that stuff happened. But EA and Unity might be looking at some of their ideas, saying, ooh, write that down. Katawa Shoujo on Steam. At least at the time, I don't know Steam's policy on sexual content today. Katawa Shoujo couldn't be on Steam due to the sexual content in the game. The devs would have had to censor many things, and in the end, they weren't willing to do that. Also, Katawa Shoujo is free, so at best, Steam may help it reach more people, but even that is not a guarantee, so it's a little unneeded in the end. Katawa Shoujo, the fighting game. They're going to make a bunch of cripples fight. Apparently, this is a fighting game using the Katawa Shoujo characters in creation. I don't think it was ever finished or any demo ever came out based on the threads you can find on the forum about it. But it would have been a fairly standard fighting game built from the ground up using the various Katawa Shoujo characters, who all would have had ultimates and supers, kind of like a Street Fighter game. Summer's Clover. This is a standalone Katawa Shoujo mod, where you play as Miki Mura, a dark-haired tomboy who showed up in Hanako's route. There's a common route that splits into two paths. You'll romance either narcoleptic Suzu Suzuki or frail-hearted Hisao Nakai. The protagonist of Katawa Shoujo. The script is by Suriko, who wrote the Lilly route. This is a non-canon mod. Both Suriko and 4LS have said so. Antique design in the settings. The gray shaded background characters you could see throughout the game are actually old alpha and beta designs of the characters. You can tell by taking the old designs and seeing that they perfectly match up with the gray shaded characters. Beta version of the OST. The beta had more songs in it and remixes of the songs that were released in the final project. You could still find the beta versions online fairly easily, as the original creators seem to have uploaded at least some of them. Cat's Paw. Cat's Paw is a mod that adds the characters Saki and Rika to Act 1 of Katawa Shoujo. The goal was to make them romantical characters, giving them their own stories and unique art. However, it seems the project has been dropped, sadly. Crippled/Hard Act Katawa. This is an animated short that was released on the Katawa Shoujo YouTube page. According to some of the comments, it was stylized after a fighting game intro called Melty Blood. I'm not certain because I don't play fighting games, but it was at the very least a nice piece of animation. Misha Bot. This is a Twitter bot that tweeted out random things that was supposed to emulate Misha and its mannerisms. The bot has not made any new tweets since 2019. Katawa Shoujo, Sydney, Australia. This is another April Fool's joke from the devs on their blog. This is the name of the game, and it would take place in Sydney, Australia, at a school that focused on teaching the English language. There's going to be a humongous cast of characters you could attempt to romance. There's going to be a visual novel like Katawa Shoujo as well. When this game was a joke, they wrote a decently long post about it in a fair amount of detail that almost seemed real. Kinji was right. This is a bit of a running joke or a meme in the Katawa Shoujo community based on the current social and political commentary of people's response to cis white men. I'm not going any further than that because of YouTube. If you're not whitelisted, you can't really talk about that stuff. Emmy is Oscar Pistorius. Oscar is like Emmy in the sense that they both use prosthetics to run their respective races. Oscar was a controversial person because the question was, does he have an unfair advantage in his ability to run due to not having feet or calves in using his prosthetics? Also, could he have a further advantage with the mechanical ability of his prosthetics? This was something that the International Court of Arbitration for Sports even looked into, because the argument was he doesn't have an unfair advantage, and his times would make him competitive with able-bodied athletes. So if Emmy is using prosthetics during her race, does she have an unfair advantage over runners who are not in real life? The scientists on the subject were divided, though most said Oscar did not have an unfair advantage. He would also use something called cheetah feet, which were supposed to emulate human feet, for his prosthetics. Iwanako is dead. In Rin's route, Hisao does reply to Iwanako's letter, though it's never shown or mentioned if she responded to him and they had some kind of exchange. It's also not really addressed what he says other than it being like some basic pleasantries. Iwanako's character wasn't important at this point in the story outside the letter, mostly just to get Hisao thinking about his life and how he might need to change things or what he needs to avoid. Kind of what his new mental processes are based on his life. There is no evidence that Iwanako ever died, though. Lilly is officially a Mary Sue. Lilly herself is kind of a Mary Sue. When you compare her to the other girls, she lacks any flaws that make her interesting. Her route only has 2 endings, not bad, and better because of an epilogue. Not a whole lot really happens in it other than some Hisao near heart attack stuff. It doesn't seem like there's much weight in any of the choices. Granted, there are also arguments against this as well, such as Lilly relying on Hisao for shopping and more. I couldn't find anything where this is officially addressed or officially stated. Katawa Shoujo DS. This is a bit of a community push to make a DS port of the game. There's some screenshots. You can also find them on the dev blog I found online. Some people may have unofficially attempted to do this. It seems the dev team thought about doing this as well, at the very least, or may have done at least a little bit of tomfoolery trying to get it to work. But ultimately, the dev team said they're not going to port the game or just the Act 1 demo to DS, nor would they want anyone else doing it. Layer 6, the Hideki route. Alright, come here. Y'all need Jesus, or Midnight Basketball, something other than whatever caused this to be created. So someone made a fanfic of what is Hisao romancing Hideki. Shizuki, God, fucking kill me. Shizune's younger brother. I didn't read it at all, so this may take place in the future and Hideki is an adult, hopefully. But from a brief skimming to see what exactly is involved, basically Hideki cucks Shizune by getting with Hisao and they bang and love each other. Look, I'm not going to read the fucking porn to you. You can go read porn on your own. Missing Stars. Missing Stars, what was originally called Mentaru Shoujo, was intended as a spiritual successor to Katawa Shoujo. The visual novel involves a guy who goes to a school for people with mental disabilities. Not like mentally incapable disabilities. So similar to Katawa Shoujo in a few ways. One of the characters from the screenshots even wears like a Hannibal Lecter mask. I don't know what the point of it is or why exactly, but in fact, it seems to have originally been talked about as an idea on the Katawa Shoujo forums, where somebody made a post asking if people would play a visual novel about people with mental disabilities that is similar to Katawa Shoujo. One of the writers for Missing Stars was also originally a fanfic writer on the Katawa Shoujo forums as well. It seems like it is still in development. They released a demo in December of 2019. Kinjivania Cripple Tears. This is a game you can find online and play in browser. There's also a few YouTube videos about it. You play as Kinji in a Metrovania style game where you try to get vengeance on the feminists for ruining your manly picnic. You fight characters going from stage to stage, and many seem to be the main characters and side characters from the game. Katawa Shoujo Rap. This is a rap someone made about the game. You could find it on YouTube. Reita's comment. On Reita's personal website, once upon a time, he apparently made a personal comment about the game. I can't find exactly what he said because the website he used to host his blog was GeoCities, which doesn't exist any longer. But according to people on the forum, it seems that it was a nice comment supporting both the game and dev team and praising their hard work. 2008 build. This, I think, is the earliest ever build of the game that got leaked. It was leaked illegally, technically, and no one really knows who did it. But it was basically the pre-alpha, and almost nothing from the version survived, but the final product routes got changed massively. This is also the same as that Grid 1 that I mentioned before. Hanako Beta Bad End. Hanako's route had a few bad endings in the beta build of the game. I mentioned them earlier. One involved Hanako jumping in front of the train, another involved Hisao breaking his neck by tripping after Hanako basically slept with him to prove that he only cared about her for sex and nothing else. This one's in the reverse. Hanako R-worded Hisao. I guess the idea here is that she led him into the sexual charge situation where she took off her clothes and then he took off his and they fucking slapped meats, but in reality, this isn't true either way. The scene is based on a real-life sexual experience by Corporal Crud, according to his blog. It was also just two awkward teens pounding pissers for the first time. Katawa Shoujo took 11 years. This is based on the fact that the first draft of the game was basically completely scrapped, few ideas and music held over. This is mentioned in a 2009 post on the blog, so the full production cycle was about 12 years, but in reality closer to 11 for the final project. Shizune's route is the canon route. Shizune is because it takes place over the longest amount of time, features most of the other characters fairly heavily, and fills the most extra detail. Therefore, it must be canon. This is not official though. March 15th, 2008 build. The March 15th, 2008 build is the date on the Katawa Shoujo blog post, where the giant man was posted, with very little context to it. This is probably just a joke to get people talking. KP, meaning Katawa points, was going to be the premium currency they joked about in their April Fool's post talking about Rika and Saki and microtransactions. Basically like the gold for Red Dead Online or whatever they use in Genshin Impact. I don't know. But it's premium currency you would buy with money and spend in game. The Giant Man. This is basically the same as the March 15, 2008 build post. It's basically just a random giant man that is shown in an alleged screenshot of the game. Again, it was probably just ultimately a joke. 4 Leaf Studios didn't come from 4chan. I can't find any evidence supporting this idea. The group of people founded on 4chan around 2007 thanks to the original artwork getting colored. Beyond that, I have no fucking clue. Somebody must have been drunk. Damaged Goods inspiration. I mentioned Damaged Goods before as the source of the inspiration behind the nurse's character. Damaged Goods was just the name of that 4chan comic. Rin has MPD or multi-personality disorder. I think this is based around how Rin acts and reacts to certain things throughout the game. She can act differently depending on her state of mind at the time, though she doesn't have multiple personality disorder or officially any form of autism. This can probably be explained by how Aurora wrote Rin's character. I know within the source code, a wider field of vision, the beginning of Act 2, Disconnect, reveals some insight on how Rin's dialogue was written. Quote, I've been playing around with different styles for her to somehow communicate her state of mind through dialogue style. Currently, and this seems to be the final solution, there are 2 distinct modes. Whenever she's in freeform stream of consciousness blabbering mode, she uses awkward grammar badly and has extreme trouble with idioms, saying and figurative speech, and she talks in short sentences, many of them in sequence. Oto, when she pulls herself together and becomes overtly lucid, she starts talking without contradictions and uses way more words per sentence than necessary to communicate, whatever might currently be swirling inside of her mind. These are not hard and fast rules, more like general guidelines, thus legibility and smooth flow of text always overrides them. Edit as you see fit, really. End quote. Hanako is a ghost! Boo. This is a joke centered around Japanese lore/culture that Rin kind of makes at one point in the game. Rin points out that she saw Hanako go to the bathroom a few times in a row. This might be a reference to the Japanese urban legend of a young World War II era girl named Hanako-san, who haunts school bathrooms. Stuffed penguin! In addition to the doll Hanako was given last year for her birthday, the one she receives this year, she also has a large stuffed penguin that can be seen in her bad ending CG. Hisao is a long-lived man. It seems that some people, such as the nurse and the doctor, says that Hisao's condition won't kill him early, unless he had a bad attack from carelessness and could live a full life. Which to me implies he's at least around 60, 70, maybe even 80 or 90 before he dies. This is partially based on keeping active and exercise and good diet and advancements in medical technology and science. Hisao will probably live a normal lifespan unless he forgets to take his medicine again. Kenji has arrhythmia. Alright, I couldn't find anything on this at all. But let me throw on my little tinfoil hat here and make up a quick theory and pull it out of my ass. Based on the photos, some people seem to think that largely the game is just a dream. Now, that part's actually true. Some people do think the game is just a dream. So if the game is a dream, and the girls embody different aspects of Hisao's thoughts/personality, then Kenji may be the part of him that doesn't change the negative example. So that means Kenji is really Hisao and must also have arrhythmia. Bam. Saimiko. Saimiko is someone's online name who made this piece of art. I don't know what significance this holds beyond this, if any. Hanako killed her ex-boyfriend, the last one. This is actually true. At least in the beta build. In that version, Hanako suffered from past trauma. When a boy confessed his feelings for her, Hanako ran away, since she still had extreme social anxiety, which led to the boy chasing after her, running across the road, and the boy getting hit by a car and dying on the spot. This is part of the trauma that would have had to have been overcome for Hisao to properly pursue her and get her good/true ending. And there you go. That's the entire 2 icebergs of Katawa Shoujo. I did remove some of them in the end just because they were repeats. And I didn't feel like repeating myself 3 or 4 times. I mean, that was going to happen if I combined 2 together. But I hope you learned something new. Hope it was good. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you being here. Have a good day. Bye-bye.